Welcome all students to Suyash Science Academy. Okay, we have 15 years of experience in 11th and 12th science. But in order to make your foundation strong, from this year we are starting 8th, 9th and 10th state board as well as CBSE science and maths classes along with the 11th and 12th. Okay, in today's lecture we will discuss the science section. Okay, in this science section, we will start your your chapter friction. Okay, today we'll start friction. Along with the chapter, along with all chapters, we'll discuss the extra points we are required for all entrance exam. Okay, it will helpful in your foundation as well as all Olympiads. For friction, the important thing or important concept is the force. You all must know the definition of force. Force is the push or pull. Force is the push or pull which changes one velocity, second direction, or third state of motion of object. This definition of force. Force is the push or pull. Force is the push or pull which changes velocity, direction or state of motion of object. Force is the push or pull which changes velocity, direction or state of motion of the object. Okay, now we will see what is the definition of this friction or frictional force. Suppose this is notebook and the pen is lying over this notebook. When I am moving this pen over the notebook, then there will be friction between these two surfaces. Okay, so definition of friction. The force which opposes relative motion. Friction is the force which opposes relative motion between two surfaces in contact. Definition of friction: it is the force which opposes relative motion between two surfaces in contact. Definition of this friction: it is the force which opposes relative motion between two surfaces in contact. Okay, you can take down the notes while watching this video. After starting our actual lecture, I will give all the notes in the writing, and that time the lecture will be more interactive. Definition of friction: the force which opposes relative motion between two surfaces in contact. So there are two necessary conditions. There are two necessary conditions for friction. First condition: the two surfaces must be in contact. And second condition: there must be relative motion between these two surfaces. If suppose one object is lying over the another surface and there is no relative motion, then friction does not occur. So two necessary conditions for friction. First condition: the two surfaces must be in contact. Okay, there are these two objects and there is no contact and they are moving, then friction does not occur. So two conditions: first, two surfaces must be in contact, and second condition, there should be relative motion between these two surfaces. Okay, this is the definition of friction. This friction depends on 2-3 parameters. Friction depends on 2-3 parameters. It depends on nature of surfaces in contact. Second, it depends on size, shape, that is dimension of objects in contact. It depends on size, shape, that is dimensions of surfaces in contact. This friction depends on two conditions: nature of surfaces in contact and size, shape, that is dimensions of objects in contact. Okay, now we'll discuss the cause of friction. Okay, cause of friction. By just watching this notebook, you can say that this surface is smooth, but when you observe this surface under the microscope, then you will find irregular surfaces. Okay, this is one surface. Suppose this is surface A, and this is surface B. When these two surfaces will kept in contact, okay, in this way, then when these two surfaces will be kept in contact with each other, and these are the irregular surfaces. When two surfaces move over each other, then interlocking between these irregular surfaces is the cause of friction. You have to remember, interlocking between irregular surfaces is the main cause of friction. You have to remember, this question may be asked for 1 mark. What is the cause of friction? Interlocking between irregular surfaces is the cause of friction. Okay, up till we have studied what is the definition of friction, then conditions for friction. Friction depends on two parameters, then cause of friction. Okay, now we'll see the direction of frictional force. This is the table. Okay, this is table, and on the table one object is, or one block is placed. This is table, and block is placed on the table. Suppose this block is pushed. This is the applied force. F is the applied force. Block is pulled or pushed towards the left side. Then the friction always occurs between the surfaces in contact. This Fs is the frictional force. If the block is moving towards left side, then the friction act along the line in contact, and it is opposite in the direction of applied force. It is opposite in the direction of applied force. If block is moving towards left side, then the frictional force is towards right side. Opposite is possible if the block is moving towards right side. Then the frictional force is towards left side. Means the direction, you have to remember these two sentences. The direction of frictional force is always opposite to direction of applied force. Direction of frictional force is always opposite to direction of applied force. Therefore, this frictional force is called as self-adjusting force. Frictional force is called as the self-adjusting force. Okay, you have to remember the direction of frictional force is always opposite. कशाच्या opposite आहे? Direction of frictional force is always opposite to direction of applied force. Therefore, this frictional force is called as self-adjusting force. Okay, now we will take the recap of these 4 points. Today we have discussed what is the meaning of friction. Okay, what is the meaning of friction? The force which opposes relative motion. The force which opposes relative motion between two surfaces in contact is called as the friction. Okay, two conditions required for friction. Two surfaces must be in contact, and there must be relative motion. That is, one surface should move over the another. Then friction depends on which parameters? Friction depends on two parameters. First parameter, friction depends on the nature of surfaces in contact, and second on the size and shape. Nature of surfaces means if two surfaces are smooth, then friction between them will be less, and when two surfaces are rough, then friction between them will be high. So it clears the point, that is, it depends on nature of material. And second, when it depends on size and shape and dimensions of the object. The cause of friction, you have to remember the cause of friction, the interlocking between irregular surfaces. All surfaces are never smooth. There must be some irregularities over these surfaces. When two surfaces are rubbing, then irregularity of one surface is interlocked between the irregularity of the other surface. So interlocking between irregular surfaces. Interlocking between the irregular surfaces is the cause of friction. Interlocking between irregular surfaces is the cause of friction. Okay, this is the cause of friction. Then direction of frictional force. Direction of frictional force is always opposite to direction of frictional force is always opposite to direction of applied force. Direction of frictional force is always opposite to direction of applied force. Therefore this frictional force is called as self-adjusting force. Frictional force is called as self-adjusting force. Okay, all of you, these all students must take down the notes. This is very easy and a simple lesson. It does not have any problems. In your book the problems are not included. In 11th and 12th you will get the problems over this friction. Okay, if you like this video, please subscribe the channel and share the video with your friends, and tell other students about this Suyash Science Academy. Next video will be given to you tomorrow. Thank you.